Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and to this new video after a long break, after I had a little baby. So I hadn't a lot of time to be making videos in the last couple of months. And I think also there was a long period there where there was a lot of shift from tools like Noodle and other low-code tools to vibe coding. A lot of people were suckered in by the promise of Claude Code and things like that could actually build them a website from start to finish, and then realized that they would actually have to get their hands into the code at some point to do something about it, or hire a coder to help them, so that they would get stuck at some point with AI. So right now it's I think a good time for people to come back and to see how AI is actually supposed to work with low code tools to make really cool stuff, but you have to still use your brain and not just speak to a machine to make it happen. Anyway, so I got inspired by seeing somebody in the Discord who posted this component. So I didn't understand the message the person left, but I think I've understood the component they wanted to build, and I thought that's a pretty cool challenge actually, to make a kind of price typing thing, like as if you were going to send somebody a bank payment and you wanted to type, like, you want to send them 12.50, you want to type in 12,50 or something and have it appear here in the input. So I thought that's a cool idea. Because I don't know how I would do that, to sort of switch from integer mode to decimal mode, and also how do you kind of add numbers onto an integer and add decimals on at the end. So it's a pretty interesting challenge. So I'm going to probably need some Claude help with this one, but I'll try to make it as quick as possible. And I'll just show from the beginning of a Noodle project for anyone who's coming back to Noodle, to see how you would get in and build this from scratch. So you're going to download the editor, so either the original Noodle editor or the Open Noodle fork or the FluxKit fork, whichever one. Use your preference. At the moment they're all still pretty much the same. And you're going to create a new project. Just make a blank hello world project. We're going to call this keypad test. It's not a bad idea sometimes, actually, if you have an experiment like this, to just create yourself a little folder and a little project just for that one component, because the cool thing about Noodle is that if, for example, you're doing an experiment here, say you're creating this keypad and you might want it in several different projects, you can create it inside Noodle in just one project that you might, because you're going to reuse it several times. And then when you go into a new project and you want your keypad, all you have to do is right click on the canvas, import from project, find that project that you were just doing, and then look, when you click import, look down through to see, keypad module, check it, and it'll bring in all of the components in the folder, all the subcomponents. So it'll bring through everything you need to use that keypad in your new project, which is really cool. So the import system is not good, and like if you have large projects, it's a nightmare to look through the whole thing. I would recommend like collapsing things and just trying to have a look through. But it also makes you realize, oh, if I want to use it this way before one day finally we get some updates to the Noodle project, it's a really good idea to organize your projects cleverly using folders. So for example, say I'm making this a reusable keypad project, I would maybe make a sheet first of all, component, and then make maybe a folder, and then within that folder start making some components, probably visual components. So let's make a visual component. We're going to call it keypad. Let's drop that visual component already into the main page, wherever that is, start page. We'll delete the hello world text. Go to our sheet, get the keypad component, drop it into the page. And at the moment it's blank, there's nothing. You could also put it into a group just to make sure that it displays correctly. And then we're ready to develop. So we should be able to see it in here in the preview while we develop. So let's go into the keypad, which is at the moment just a blank group. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the input first. So we have that, we can see something. can see it's just a bit messy at the moment because it's right in the middle. So we can go back to the start page and make this group floating in the middle of the page. We will give it a max width of 500 pixels and a max height of, no, max height's okay because we're actually using a content height group, so that means we don't have to worry about the height, so that's nice and centered. Let's go back in, and this is going to be, well, there's no label here, so let's just call this, just for fun, just for the experiment, we'll call it price. You know, of course, when you import it into a different project, it imports a copy, so you can edit that copy in a different project and change the label, change whatever, and it doesn't affect what the original project that you developed to use as a template. So, okay, so we've got that. Let's make a group where we're going to put in our keys from the keypad, and let's make that, so here in the example that was a button, I don't think that's a good idea because I would like to have it as reusable as possible. So I'm going to make a component in here. So I can actually make the component a subcomponent of an existing component, which it sounds a bit crazy, but it's a nice way, again, to organize things. You don't have to have everything in folders. It can also be under components. But a folder is like an empty element, whereas a keypad is an actual element. So it's just the choice that you make. So keypad key doesn't have to be any particular case. It can just be normal writing like that with spaces and everything. So it's going to be a group, and the group is going to be, I guess, a fixed width and height. So we're going to make it, yeah, let's say 100 pixels by 100 pixels and see what that looks like. It's probably a bit too big. 80 by 80. And then we're going to add a text in the middle of the group, and that text will be the number. And then we're going to have a component input, so we can define what the number is going to be. So it's going to be number, maybe label, because we do have ones that are not numbers. And the label is going to be the text of that element. And then we just need to have that when we click this item, something happens. So let's just see how that works first before we get started with that. So we're going to put in a couple of keypad keys to test it out. And the keypad key is going to be a 1. So it doesn't look like much right now. It looks about the right size, kind of what it was here. Oh, it was more landscape, wasn't it? So let's make it a bit more landscape. Make the height 60, make it a bit more flat. And then, so the text is kind of floating at the moment. We want the text to be content width and height, and to be in the middle of the group. Or we could also have done that with the CSS justifying the alignment of the content, but it's whatever you prefer. The numbers are a bit bigger here in bold, so let's make them big and bold and white. So Roboto black, make it white. We need to make the background of the group grayish. That's not bad. Yeah, fine. There was like a white line in between them. We'll work on that afterwards. But, oh, well, I guess we could give the group a border. That would help. So we'll give it a 1 pixel border that will be white, and then that will do, or like a really light grey. So that'll make a bit of light grey in between each of the keys. It's a bit of a cheat, but it'll do. And then, so what we're doing now is we're either going to be adding in a whole bunch of keypad keys, or we're going to be creating a repeating group. So yeah, your choice is either to have it a little bit messy, which is what it was in the original picture, where we have loads of keypad keys stacked on top of each other. We're obviously going to need to have columns to make that work, or else it will just be looking silly. So we can we're going to do 1, 1, 1, because there were 3 1, 1, 1 equally spaced columns. Otherwise it would be 1, 2, 1 would be a quarter, a half, a quarter of the width. So this means that it's evenly spaced. We don't need any gap because we have already created that. And minimum column width, we don't need to worry about that. And the group, I guess we should make it like a max width to make sure all the keys stay together. So let's make this a max width. So the keypad keys are 80 with a pixel border, but is that included in the 80? Probably not. Anyway, let's see. So let's make the group 80 times 3. Come on, maths. Where are you? 240. Let's see what that looks like. That's okay so far. Make a third one just to show you what that looks like. And a fourth one. There we go. So it's starting to make that keypad, which is fine. We can do it that way. The other way is to make a repeater. And our keypad key is going to be the template this time instead. So keypad key. And then what we need is data to make it such that there are 9 keys that exist. So the data would be a static array, and we would do objects in that array, and we would have label be, for example, we'll do a string, let's say 1, so it's equal because we're going to need to make the comma and the tick the strings as well. So you would just copy paste that as many times as you want, 1, 2, and 3, etc. Just as an example. So it's important you have objects because each object in your static array will represent one instance of the template you've selected. So you can see that that makes 1, 2, 3, 4 exactly the same. So essentially it's the same as what we did putting in 4 different keypad components in a stack. It's just that the repeater means that you just have one element, one instantation, one instance of it that's repeated as many times as there are objects in the array. So we'll keep that going because it's worked quite nicely, and I like the repeater way. I like things to be clean, so that for me is nice and clean. So 6, 7. This would be the moment where I should have some fancy video editing software where I can pause and be like, here's one I made earlier. Okay, now the tricky part, we need a comma. So this must be European. I think I saw that there was a bit of German in the picture. In the picture, yeah, there we go. So there's a bit of bestätigen at the bottom there. So I think this is going to be why there's a comma, is that in Europe, in Central and non-Britain Europe, living in France, we use commas as decimal points as opposed to points for whatever reason. I don't know. There probably is a very good reason. I have no idea what it is. So let's have that. Oh, we wanted a tick. Can we do an emoji? I think we can. Let's do it like that. I'm not sure that'll work. We'll see. Yeah, it doesn't come up as white though, which sucks. But it looks nice. Can we get a... Maybe there's like a tick symbol that we can get. Yeah, that'll do. Hey, nice. So there is actually a tick font symbol. Very nice. Okay, now next part. So when we click on a number, what we need is that the input is getting its value from a either a variable or a component object. So is it going to be something that you use across the whole app, or is it something you kind of compose first and then when you tick it, it becomes a variable? So I would say let's make a component object first, which is just a kind of static object that lives inside this component, and let's give it the property of price. Price is going to connect to the input, and whenever the price changes, the input text will change. So the reason also to use a component object is it makes it easier within the repeater to set, without having to have the repeater output the value, which you can also do. You can set the parent component object properties. So we'll set the price, and it should be able to see its parent there. I also want to make this clickable. Clickable, it is clickable, but to make it look clickable. So we can actually click them, which is nice. So it's going to set the parent component properties. No, it's not, because if we set the price, then it's going to set the price to 1, and then it's going to set it to 2 instead of setting it to 12. So that's not good. So we don't want that, actually. Forget that. We don't want a component object. We want to have, well, we can still have a component object here. We want when the repeater is clicked, we're going to have some sort of function that runs that's going to tell us what, that's going to take in the number and add it on to the existing number. So let's ask Noodle AI if it can do that. So Noodle AI doesn't work in the original Noodle anymore. It works in Open Noodle and in FluxSkip. So we'll click function, take an input number, no, let's say take 2 input numbers. One is the existing number to be mutated. The second is a new number, single digit integer, that should be added to the end of the existing number. For example, existing number is empty, new number is 1, output is 1. Another example, existing number is 1, new number is 2, output is 12. Let's see what that can do. And then we're going to run that function when the item is clicked, which I think we have to do an output for. So we'll do a component output. It's going to be called clicked. When the group is clicked, it triggers the clicked output. And the ID, I think it's not going to work because we don't have an ID. We have labels, so we're going to output the clicked label. So we just connect this to this. I can't remember, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because there's only one value that becomes the ID. I can't remember how it works. So when this is clicked, it runs the function, and the clicked label is the new number, and the existing number is this price. And then once that runs, then we can set the component object properties price to the new number, which we could also do inside the function, but I prefer doing things visually, taking advantage of that visual element of Noodle and not doing everything inside functions. However, I've seen some people being very successful doing a lot of their Noodle stuff inside functions, and even doing like database calls and things like that inside functions. From my experience, it really just depends. Sometimes it's nice to have it all nice and neat and clean, and sometimes you just want to have things spread out so you can see what the workflow actually looks like. So let's see what happens if I go to 1, input is 1, output is nothing. New number must be a single digit integer, okay. No, it's not doing anything. It's taking it in, but it's not doing anything. Okay, so what I would do in this case is I would give this to my best friend, Claude. And I would say, okay, I have a function in my low-code tool Noodle. If you have the Noodle, which I'll put up at some point, if you have the Noodle system prompt from the Noodle code, you can add it into a project in Claude. It would be really handy because then Claude has all the data it needs to know how Noodle functions work. So I have a function in my low-code tool, Noodle, that should take an input number and add on a new number to the end, e.g. So input number is null, new number is 1, output is 1, input number is 1, new number is 2, output is 12, etc. Oh, and then you should also paste your code in there. So just Claude and other tools understand when you paste this kind of code, it does understand, okay, outputs must be some special object that you have that I don't know about, but I'll just assume that that's what it is, and so generally tends to do good debugging of these functions even without the system prompt. So you're initializing existing number, new number with empty strings as default, then checking new number, which won't pass your validation. Okay then, thank you, Claude. Still throwing the same error. Is it because existing number is empty? Yeah, but that's okay. So what if existing number is just empty? Which probably is null, so doesn't really make much sense. Yeah, you can. Okay. Let's take that one. And it's throwing error. Your number must be a single digit integer. Oh. Because I made it a string. I'm stupid. Can you make sure that even if the input numbers are strings, they're converted to numbers? Of course it doesn't see it as a number because it's a string, because I made them strings. So I didn't have to. Should have thought about that. But Claude will sort it out. Here we go. So we have a result 1 and it's setting the component object. Nope. No, it's not. Why is it not doing that? So it did set it. Component object properties, yeah. That's the component object and it's got price. Okay then. Maybe this needs to be refreshed or something. No, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, okay. So kind of initiates it and then starts it working. Okay, cool. So we just need to fix that bug where it didn't initiate it. If we set like a default price, let's set a default price just so it has something to be initiating it on page load. Yeah, nice. Cool. So yeah, it just needed to be initiated. That's okay. Okay, good. And now the real challenge. That if we click something, it's going to set us into decimal mode. So I think what we need first of all is a switch. And the switch is going to be decimals. So we're going to rename it decimal mode. And then we're going to do an expression, and the expression is going to be, so I don't know if this is the best way to do it. One way would be we could update the function to recognize all this crap. So if the new number coming in is a comma, then switch to decimal mode and all that. But maybe we'll just do it that way. Yeah, I was going to do it. Well, let's do the visual way. Screw it, because it's nice to see these different nodes. So let's do an expression and say clicked label equals, what was it? Oh yeah, comma. So when it's clicked, we first evaluate this, and the clicked label goes here. And so if it is not a comma, it goes to our existing function, which is to concatenate the numbers together. So that stays the same. Now if it is comma, then we switch to decimal mode. And decimal mode gets fixed. We just switch it on, it doesn't turn off. Because once we're in decimals, then we're in decimals. Otherwise we have to just cancel and start again. So that also means that when we're in decimal mode, I would like to have the component object property set to say that we're in decimal mode. It's going to be a Boolean. It's going to be false by default, and then when that's set to on, we're going to give the current state, and when it's switched on, we will set the component object. Why? Because then within the repeater, we can say that when the parent component object decimal mode is true, then this group is going to be not clickable, like a different color, something like that. So let's say this is clickable and disabled modes. So clickable mode is just going to be background value is going to be a color. Yes, or background color. We can have a transition, that would be nice. It's going to be a color, and it's going to be clickable value. We said was like a 600 gray, 700 gray, something like that. 600 gray. So the standard is 600 gray, and not clickable is going to be like 300 gray or 400 gray, so it looks different. So that's the background color of the group, and it's going to also be, okay, so decimal mode is true or false, so when this is decimal mode, so when this says that we're in decimal mode, and sorry, my bad, and label is comma. So here's the label. Then if both of those are true, then we switch to disabled. So that hopefully will mean then that, oh, and also then that'll be not clickable anymore. So so that we don't get the same thing running twice. So this will only be clickable if the state is clickable. So state is clickable, then when we click, that goes to the output. But otherwise, it's not going to, if we click and it's not clickable, there's no false output, it'll just fail. It'll just not do anything, not fail. Got it. Okay, so now what we want to do is to have a different feature, a different function, which again is probably not the most efficient, but let's just do it. Can we please now make a second function? Same concept, but this time the user is adding decimal numbers. Take these examples. So current number is what, 12, new number is 3, output is 12.3. 12, 3, new number is 4, output is 12.34. I'm not sure if that's not just going to output a string, but we'll see. Let's try it. So we're going to make a new function. We'll add that code in, and we will put in the label, the new number, and the existing number is here. And if it is, no, hang on. Oh yeah, hold on. I need another expression here. So, yeah. So when we click that, oh no, sorry. If it's not a comma, then we will decipher if it is in decimals or not. And if it is in decimals, then we will, if it's not in decimals, sorry, we run this regular function. And if it is decimals, then we run this one. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing again, where we will put the price into the object. Okay, number must be blah blah blah. Okay, cool. So if I click comma, I'm in decimal mode, and the decimal has gone blank. And if I click it again, nothing happens. So that's cool. If I click 8, oh, it didn't work. So new number is 8. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the output is, oh no, look, the output is 12.3, 12, 1, 2, 3.8. So it did actually do that. Did it set the price correctly? No, because price is a number. Damn. Yeah, I think we might need to do it. Yeah, maybe what we need to do is set this up as a string rather than a number, because if we keep it going as a number, it's not going to work. So let's set it up as a string. The string is going to be 0, and that's going to be the initial value. Then can you rework both functions? I need it to accept string numbers as strings and output the same way as we already did. But outputting strings. Okay, so we're going to just change it over to being strings instead, because of the comma, I think, the one thing that it's not able to deal with. So 1, 2, okay, cool. So let's start again. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we need to take away the 0. Damn. Okay, what if we just put an empty string? Would that work to initiate it? Maybe. Yes. So empty string initiates. 1, 2, comma, 3, 4. Oh yeah, done. Nice. So yeah, we had to do it as a string because the comma is not really recognized in classic JavaScript as numbers. Maybe there is a way to do it. If you do know, that's great. Tell me in the comments, please. But that's cool. So yeah, you would have to then add some sort of reset button if you want to reset the price to back to empty, so that you can run it again. Say if you've accidentally hit the comma button too early and you start making decimals too early, then you would want to have some way to reset it rather than just disabling the comma button. Have some way of Deleting, for example, would be nice, a delete button where you can go backwards. Again, that would just be another function. So just keep the whole function thing going. But yeah, that's nice. So cool. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope that's given you something useful. I hope it maybe inspires you to get back into doing Noodle again. And I'll really look forward to seeing you in the next one sooner rather than later.